What is up, gamers? The Red Dragon here, and we are checking out the latest news and headlines. Got a couple of stories for you. The first one just recently breaking. Don Mattrick leaving Xbox, leaving Microsoft. He's reportedly going to Zynga and going to head up their division. But that is pretty big news because he was the face pretty much of the Xbox One reveal at E3, and he was also the guy who pissed off a lot of gamers by making a lot of different controversial statements. He was the one who said, you know, if you don't have an internet connection, go buy an Xbox 360. And he just came across as really arrogant, and he could have sold it a lot better than what he did. But anyway, he is out, and so with Microsoft changing the narrative, changing the storyline, changing their policies, now they're going to be able to roll out somebody else as the new face of Xbox One. So Don Mattrick out of Xbox. The other big headline is Microsoft has again had a spokesman who made some statements that kind of brought in the news. He said basically that comparing, or people who were comparing the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 specs, most of them don't even know what they're arguing about, and I'm generalizing here. And he also basically said that specs don't matter. So as soon as these comments were made, of course, people jumped up and said, well, yeah, that is, of course, what somebody would say who has the machine with the least amount of power. You would come out and say, yeah, of course, the specs don't matter because, well, we're losing. But he came back and he went on to further try to explain himself by basically saying that really the specs haven't even been determined and confirmed, and at this point, you know, things are still being tweaked, and he said they will be tweaked all the way up until the final release date. And there are some stories that kind of back up his claim. Digital Foundry, for instance, just did a pretty big article, and again, all these things I'll link in the description box as always, so you can go read them for yourselves. But they have found that the Microsoft technicians, they're tweaking things, and they have basically gotten an 88% increase in the embeddable RAM than they previously had whenever they released the specs. So everybody was coming out and saying Xbox One was horrible because their RAM throughput was so low, but it turns out they've been able to increase that. They found out that it can read and write at the same time. I don't know how you missed that whenever you're first going over it, but again, Microsoft's trickling out information, just little bits here and there. They're changing policies, changing things, and they're keeping the headlines and the narrative about Xbox One. And a lot of people have been mad at me because I've been doing so many Xbox One stories, but the fact is, Microsoft has been dominating the headlines because they do, you know, send out a little piece of information here and there. And so during E3, it was like PlayStation 4 was dominating the headlines. But since then, PlayStation really hasn't announced any more features. I mean, they came out and they had, you know, their best package, you know, right there. Not to say, I want to slow down there. I don't want to say that they don't have any more things to show off. I'm just saying they're holding their cards for right now. And so, you know, there's different conventions coming up. And so that will give them time to show off what else they have. But, you know, their policies weren't screwed up from the beginning, but Xbox's was. So now Microsoft, you know, ever since that week of E3, they've been going back and changing little things here and there, posting up a story here and there. So that is why Xbox is in the headlines, and that's why there's so many stories on Xbox. Post your comments below. Let me know, do specs really matter? Here's my take on it. Specs in the beginning, I don't think are going to make a damn bit of difference, especially whenever it comes to most developers who publish across all platforms. I think the longer you get into the console, the better the tweakage is, the more people learn how to get the best elements out of the system, then you're going to start getting better looking games, just like this current generation. The better looking games came at the very end. So this one, again, whenever the games first release, I don't think there's going to be that great of a difference between the two. Even though on paper, PlayStation currently has a lot better looking system, you know, at E3, there honestly wasn't that big of a difference. Not to say that PlayStation games won't look better. Honestly, if developers want to make them look better, they probably can on the PlayStation. The question is, will they do that? Ubisoft, for instance, has already came out and said that Watch Dogs, which is going to be a huge game, will look the same on Xbox and PlayStation. So, depending on how many developers look into this, of course there are going to be people who do push it to the limits, and that will happen. And if that is a big selling point for you, then so be it. There's no right or wrong answer. But I guarantee you, if you go up and you're in line at, the Black Friday sale when it comes around in November, you go and you ask, just take a poll of all the people standing in line to buy a next generation console and ask them about specs, and they don't know what the hell you're talking about. They think you're talking about your glasses on your face or something. They ain't got a clue. So I don't think the majority of people do care about specs. I think the hardcore gamer does, but the hardcore gamer is not the silent majority. So that does it for me, The Red Dragon. Post your comments below. Let me know what you think about this. Take care.